Welcome to the many worlds of Mike and Anthony. I'm Mike.
I am Anthony, and man, I have really been looking forward to nerding out with you on this one, Mike.
Yeah, me too.
How you
Yeah,
doing?
I
Yeah,
pretty good. I
yeah,
I hear you went and saw Spider-Man.
yeah. Went and saw Spider-Man. How about you? Did you go see Spider-Man?
I did. Yeah, I
Okay,
saw it Monday, evening. I
excellent. Yeah, it sounds like a good topic for tonight. Yeah, maybe.
think so. So if you do not want Spider-Man Brand New Day spoiled, then
Yeah,
you should mute this at least and
yeah.
go watch it, and then watch this.
Watch this stream later.
Yeah.
Interesting. I don't know why we even need to put the spoiler alert on there because apparently this movie is just smashing records. I think just about everybody on the planet went and saw this movie. So we probably, well, besides my dad, I know my dad hasn't gone to see it yet. So dad, if you're watching,
Mhm.
please go ahead and turn it off because we're probably going to spoil a few things about this film, which I think you will absolutely love when you do watch it. So please keep that in mind. But go ahead and mute it if you want that or whatever you want to continue to stream. So but what breaking box office records? I think it had an opening day record. I think as of not think as of today, I think it's still number 2 ever highest grossing for a weekend, which is pretty
Yeah.
fascinating. Just under another Marvel movie, the Endgame movie. So,
Mhm.
I was pretty impressed with this. So, pretty cool. You know,
Yeah, and I mean, probably if we adjusted for inflation, those might change, but just total gross, yeah, it's number two.
yeah. Well, and it's almost, I think, globally, from what I understand, it's almost reached $1 billion. That's insane. So, kudos to Sony Columbia, right? I mean, so and Mike knows, and probably everybody does from if you've watched some of our previous episodes. I do distinguish between Disney Marvel and Sony Marvel, which obviously Disney has the lion's share of all the Marvel content, and rightfully so, a lot of good Marvel content.
Mhm.
But as of late, of course, I'd say post Endgame, we just really haven't had, in my opinion, really some really standout, fantastic Marvel films almost enough, to a point where even DC hasn't been performing very well, in my opinion. And so, kind of the superhero movies played themselves out just a little bit, in my opinion. But then Spider-Man Brand New Day comes out, and it's like we're right back to square one, where it was one of the most exciting, awesome movies of the summer and number 2 record holder for weekend box office opening numbers. So
Yeah,
kudos, like I said, to Sony. Sony's awesome. Please, Disney, please, please let Doomsday be
yeah.
awesome. Please.
I have my issues with the Sony Spider Verse in that if you all the movies without Spider-Man, with the exception of I like the Venom movies. So I don't think they were the greatest superhero movies ever, but
Well, no.
um, Uh, it's only when we have the team up between Sony as the distributor and owner of the Spider-Man rights and
Yeah.
Marvel bringing in the a Holo component and stuff like that, where we have this synergy that seems to be somewhat magical.
Yeah. Well, I like the way that, Columbia, Sony sticks to stick to a good storyline, right? I mean, they just really do. This was a good movie. It's a really good movie. Out of the 4 Holland Spider-Man movies, my favorite is still the third one, which was No Way Home. But this is a smooth second for me. This was a really good movie. It was exciting. It was fun. It to me it as we've chatted just briefly about this, Mike. It's very there are really a lot of great scenes that remind me of the comic books, right?
Oh
And I know
yeah,
you tease
yeah,
that out a little bit, but so yeah. So I'm looking forward to getting into this discussion. Once again, not going to be doing like critiquing or anything like that. There's plenty of YouTubers out there that do that stuff. Mike and I are going to tease out a few themes that we thought were interesting and fascinating about this show, and just
yeah,
because we like to, this is where how we nerd out on these types of things. So looking forward to
yeah.
jumping in on that. So.
We don't do breakdowns, and technically we don't do reviews. However, we don't hold back our opinions if we like
Exactly.
something or performance or
Yep. Yep.
or whatever. Um,
Totally agree. But hey,
but we're not aiming to be on Rotten Tomatoes anytime soon.
no, no. Of course, maybe someday we'll have some guests and all of that stuff. But as
Yeah.
of right now, in our humble beginnings, we're really enjoying these are the types of conversations that Mike and I have on a regular basis when we do chat, offline.
Just now we film them.
Yeah, now we're just doing it for an audience because we want to share the information. We want to share our takes on things. I think it's fun. It's fun for us, and we hope it's fun for you too. But
yeah, you have any updates for us?
I do actually. I got to give a shout out to my buddy. He had a trip back home. He's from the New York area, New Jersey. Had a trip back home, and he brought me back an official licensed shot glass. Not going to use this. This is a collector's item. As you can see, I like to collect things. This is a collector's item for the NBA champions 2026 New York Knicks 25-26. Awesome. Pretty stoked about that. So yeah, pretty cool. And it's officially licensed. There's a little holographic. Not going to take the sticker off. Going to leave it there. So got that, bro. Thanks, buddy. You know who you are. Yeah. And then, not much in the world of video games this week. I'm of course a Nintendo guy. So a Nintendo Direct, we had some of that stuff come out. On the movie front, as everybody knows, Henry Cavill is he's my Superman. I'm a Snyderverse Superman guy. He did drop a little line or two on his Warhammer movie. I don't know who all is familiar with Warhammer, but I'm very much a novice with Warhammer, but I'm pretty stoked just from what I've read about Warhammer. I know it's like a massive game and series and book stuff and all kinds of cool stuff. I'm really looking forward to it, especially since Cavill is or Cavill, however you pronounce his last name. He's involved with it and going to be in it, and it's going to be awesome, I think. So I'm looking forward to that. And Mike, if I saw correctly today, unfortunately, I did hear that today's the anniversary of Sir Alec Guinness's passing. So, yeah. So if I'm correct about that, I did not look to see if that was credible. However, sometimes I do trust the internet for things. So if it is, just want to say rest in peace, our Obi-Wan Kenobi. Thank you very much for making my childhood really special.
Yeah, same. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so what am I watching? What's Mike watching? I'm watching Silo, still awesome. Star Trek, Strange New Worlds, which continues to be good. If you ever watched the original first pilot of Star Trek, this is if that were a series with Captain Pike.
Okay. So it's a Pike series. Okay.
It's Captain Pike. Kirk is in it, but he's still coming up the ranks.
Okay.
Spock is in it, and Ethan Peck is fantastic as Spock.
Awesome.
And there's a lot of they keep adding more and more Enterprise people as the time goes on and you get closer to the original series. But it's great. I love it. And it's a nice return to classic Star Trek storytelling.
Okay.
Much in the vein of Next Generation and the original series.
Very good.
And so what else? So we've got, of course, X-Men 97, which continues to be good, and House of the Dragon, which is the best season yet, I think.
Yeah. Still need to catch up on the latest episode. Haven't done that yet, but I've been enjoying House of the Dragon. Matter of fact, if you've watched a couple of the past episodes, you'll know that I've been struggling to make it through the latest installment of the Avatar series. What is it? Fire and Water or whatever they call it. Anyways, I made it through another probably 40 minutes or so of the third movie. So just, I'm making my way through it. I'm getting there. But yeah, House of the Dragon, I need to catch up on the latest episode there. Very much enjoying that series, though. It's very good. Still finishing up some Rick and Morty. I know that the season 9's been out for a while, but I wait till it comes out on HBO Max. I just watched, I think it was the 8th episode. It was a pretty good one. It was a banger for me. So yeah, I don't know. Anybody gets into that adult humor, cartoon stuff, it's pretty funny. So so yeah, check that out. But yeah, but no,
I've also been watching 12 Monkeys. I started
Oh
with
yeah,
the
the
original
series.
Bruce Willis film.
Yeah,
And
good film, good movie, man.
yeah, and then moved on to the TV show, which is not a sequel to the movie. In fact, that
Yeah,
does the general story is the same, and in fact, some of the dialogue is exactly the same, but the premise is very, very different. In the Bruce Willis movie, I don't want to spoil it if you haven't watched it, but
we
there
already
are
said
different
spoiler
ways
alert.
you could interpret that original movie in
Yeah.
a couple different ways,
Okay.
as to what's happening there.
Interesting.
Um,
Well,
yeah. Um, Maybe we should do a 12 Monkeys show one of these days.
we should.
Um,
I will need to watch it. I will need to watch it. So
yeah. The only spoiler I'll give you is it doesn't have anything to do with monkeys.
right,
Uh,
which I remember that too. Boy, they played it up
um,
though that it did.
yeah.
Yeah. So
Um,
Mike, let's talk a little Spider-Man, shall we? Yeah.
yeah.
So just for everybody's, just real quick, Spider-Man is a Marvel comic character, probably, well, not probably, is one of my favorites. As a child growing up, I very much loved Spider-Man. I still do to this day. He's still one of my favorites, if the number one favorite superhero. He debuted in Amazing Fantasy number 15. That is the first appearance of Spider-Man. If anybody has a copy of that in halfway good condition, you are sitting on a lot of money as far as value is concerned. Just throwing that out there. So that's cool. I do not have a copy. I wish I did, but unfortunately I don't. But then Spider-Man got his own comic, and it has been probably one of the longest running comics, or at least Spider-Man has probably been one of the longest running comics to date. Not discounting Batman and Superman on the DC side, but from a Marvel side. So very, very cool.
Yeah.
Had a lot of versions of it. But we've had amazing movies. I think the last few decades, we've had some amazing Spider-Man movies, starting with the Tobey Maguire movies, which are fantastic. Then getting into the Garfield movies, which people would argue about the second one. I think, Mike, you'd probably agree. It was okay. It wasn't the best. The first one I think was amazing, and now we're in the Tom Holland series, and here we are. We got the fourth one, Brand New Day. So
Yeah. And I love Tom Holland. I like all of the Spider-Man actors,
yep, me
uh,
too.
maybe equally in different ways, I suppose. I love the fact that this movie to me felt of all the movies, even though I would say that Raimi number two would be probably my favorite and the best.
All time, all time.
Um, this one felt the most like a Spider-Man comic book coming to life. I felt like
Yep,
just the way it looked, his suit, everything,
I
the way
agree.
his eyes emoted, all of that was
Yep,
very comic accurate. I thought, even if I couldn't find a parallel story wise
right.
with beat by beat plot wise in the comics.
Yeah, I don't think there was one associated with this, which I think is what made this story kind of neat and unique in its own way. I was surprised, by the way, as everybody knows, if you've watched past episodes of mine and Mike's, I tend to stay away from teasers and trailers and people's commentary and all of these fan theories. And I stay away from all that, and even news releases and whatnot, that I just don't want to, I just want to go in completely open-minded to what the movie's going to be about. And as you know, Mike, we've talked, we thought the Hand was going to be the biggest
Mhm.
villain in this movie. And I mean, they might've had maybe 10 minutes of screen time. Maybe.
Maybe, yeah. And even then, most of the time they weren't the Hand.
Exactly. Right.
Uh,
We were like theorizing, oh, are they going to do this again?
mhm.
Totally threw me for a loop.
Yeah,
So,
when you have the Hand in there, my thoughts immediately go to, oh, Daredevil's going to show up, Elektra
yep.
may show up.
Yep.
Um,
We're going
no,
to see some resurrection type stuff. We're going to see some hokey stuff. Nope. Nothing.
no, they're just basic ninjas in this.
That's it.
Ninjas, yeah, basic in this episode.
Ninjas,
In
yeah,
this
basic.
show.
Pretty
Yeah.
cool, powerful ones, but
Oh
basic.
yeah.
Yep. I mean,
They got some
so
skills.
yeah. So I did
And
enjoy that part of the movie, by the way, or that piece.
it's cool. Yeah.
As I started to watch the movie, I thought, oh, there's going to be more here than meets the eye. 'Cause. 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 '
again, I can't emphasize enough. We've now seen two major movies, both with Holland and Bernthal in them,
Yes.
that relied on practical effects whenever possible. And
Yep.
oh my goodness, does it make a difference as to looking at it and thinking, wow, this is you feel like you're part of the action when it's
Yes.
practical when they're practical effects, I feel like.
Yep. It was great. It was fun. It was a fun one. A lot of action sequences in there. I will
Yeah,
say
like
yeah, go ahead, Mike.
just like when MJ is uh web slinging with our favorite neighborhood Spider-Man.
Yep. It's classic. It's a classic move. He's always got a web swing, with the lady. So it's awesome. But yeah, just real quick, this movie, it really kind of started out dark. It juggled with some theme, with a kind of a dark mental, theme, like a mental health theme, to be real honest with you. But it became more and more clear as to the reason why as the movie went on, which I thought was a fascinating story, which is some more stuff that we're going to talk about a little bit later on in this episode.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah. Um, and I didn't think about that until you mentioned it. I guess I kind of I like it when stories are a bit dark, although
yeah,
I don't, I tend to I'm this old softy for happy endings.
me
So I
too.
like it when they stop being dark.
Right. Of course. Of course. There's a light.
but,
Yes.
but I do enjoy long night, long dark tea time of the soul, as Douglas Adams might have called it.
Yeah.
Um, And so, yeah, we had Zendaya reprising her role as MJ, who does
Yep.
not remember Peter, which is heartbreaking to him.
It is very heartbreaking. That if we can just take a moment to talk about that, because I have got to
Yeah.
give Peter some props on that, right? So, uh, as if you've watched the third Tom Holland Spider-Man, No Way Home, at the very end, Doctor Strange produced a spell that basically it's a memory spell, and it erased, or I don't want to say erased, I want to say it blocked, or it did something to the memories of everybody to where they don't remember that Peter Parker is Spider-Man. Because if you remember
Or they don't remember Peter Parker at all.
that exactly,
Yeah.
they don't remember him at all, or that he's tied into Spider-Man, which, as we know, was revealed his identity during I think it was the second Spider-Man, the Far From Home, I believe. So, but neither here nor there. He enacted a spell, so MJ you didn't know who he was, and Holland had to carry that around with him and I think they did a quick montage. They went through basically 4 years of college. So he carried that around for a good 4 or 5 years of, loving someone who he knew that he would have to even remotely try to start over with her if he was going to hopefully get her to fall in love with him again, right? Because he was so in love with her. Yet he realized that he couldn't do it, of course, because with great power comes great responsibility, as we all know from Spider-Man.
Mhm.
And you basically have to make a sacrifice, and that sacrifice is, if you want to protect the ones that you love, you can't associate yourself with them, because obviously you're always going to have bad people, bad actors, bad villains, coming after you. And what do they always do? Typically they'll threaten the vulnerable, the people that you love and care about, because that's how they tease out the weakness in every superhero. At least most arcs go that direction. So he basically was leaving her alone. Now, yeah, there came a part in the movie where he had to just suck it up when she told him, because eventually in the movie they have a talk. They finally talk. It was forced, but they finally talk, and it was unfortunate. But she basically told him, I don't have any of those feelings. And talk about ultimate rejection. I think that might have been one of his fears in the back of his mind too, that if I ever do try to talk to her, or because he there were a couple times, I think, in the history where he was like, I'm gonna tell her, I'm gonna talk to her, I'm gonna do it, and then he stopped himself. I think that might have been one of his fears, and sure enough, it's like almost as if you could see that fear came to reality, that it was
Yeah.
exactly what he thought. He was going to tell her that he loved her, and all of that, and blah blah blah. They knew each other in the past, and she was going to tell him, I'm sorry, I don't know you, I don't feel that way. So kudos to Holland, or at least Spider-Man Peter Parker in this case, for demonstrating strength in the face of ultimate rejection from love for love. I mean, that was hardcore. So kudos to him. Good
Yeah.
example. Good example.
Well, he told when right before the spell was when he had Doctor Strange do the spell, he told MJ and his best friend Ned
Yep.
that he would find them again.
Yes.
So it was his intention, and it's worth noting that the last two interactions he had with them was his special handshake, which I can't do.
Which
His
was
special
awesome, by
handshake
the way.
with Ned
Yes.
and his kiss with MJ.
Yep. Yep.
Both of which we're gonna have callbacks in this movie. And
Yep.
it's interesting that the Doctor Strange spell affected the mind and memory, and that our villain, so to speak, although she's not really the villain, but our antagonist for most of the movie is Jean Grey,
Yep.
the first X-Men student of Charles Xavier,
Yep.
historically, and her power is to manipulate the mind.
Spoiler alert. This was the big one for me. Jean Grey was the antagonist in this movie. And there were some moments where we didn't know it was her. And there was some pretty dark stuff going on. So
yeah, and we're gonna talk about that, and why that darkness needed to have even more darkness piled upon it
yes,
for it to
yes.
make sense. And that even though that statement probably doesn't make sense right now,
Psychologically, very cool. Hopefully, yeah.
I mean, I do try to avoid spoilers, at least for the plot and major reveals. But I will say that I do like to watch a lot of film analysis and TV show analysis. So I did not avoid knowing that Sadie Sink was going to be in the movie and that she was likely going to be Jean Grey, just because, I mean, the X-Men saga is coming up. And Sadie Sink is, after coming off of Stranger Things.
Yes.
They're going to give her a big role, and there's no bigger role for a redhead than Jean Grey, probably.
Jean Grey. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I avoided it like the plague. By the way, when they started talking about Sadie, and her, what she was doing, or they spotted her and this and that, I avoided it like the plague. So I honestly, going into this movie, I did not know it was going to be Jean Grey. So that's how much I stayed away from any information on the internet about this. So I was super stoked about it because I thought, we've got an X-Men tie-in. They're teeing stuff up, of course, for Doomsday. This is going to be awesome. Turns out this is really almost a standalone. This really, to me, was a standalone film that you could easily tie in if you want to, but it's a standalone film.
Yeah, and it's also a pretty great X-Men film.
It is.
Yeah,
I do agree.
It's like a Marvel Girl Origins that
that's a great point, Mike. That's a great point. We honestly got a Spider-Man movie, but we also kind of got a nice X-Men origin movie. Really, it's what it felt like, because we somewhat got an origin story about Jean Grey. We really did.
And I almost feel like this is the promise of Marvel and Sony saying, of all the stuff I really loved about the original X-Men series, the one place where they let me down was Jean Grey's arc, the Dark Phoenix arc, and her relationship with Scott Summers, which they totally sacrificed because Hugh Jackman was a big star.
Yep.
So I feel like they're saying, okay, we're going to give you Jean Grey that's not exactly like the one in the comics, to be fair, but we're going to give her a good story this time.
And I think this was a fantastic start. Just my opinion. It was awesome.
Yeah, same. So. And then
I say awesome a lot because it was awesome.
We got
and
Frank,
there's the man. There's the man, Frank. So now I did know the Punisher was going to be in this. However, I did not know how prominent his character was going to be. And Mike, as you know, he was a fantastic character in this movie.
I'm so glad that they made that. It wasn't just they bring him in and like, oh, this is fun, but because. And I don't think you've seen Supergirl, but Lobo was brought into that movie. Spoilers for Supergirl.
Yeah.
Lobo was brought into that movie, and Jason Momoa had been wanting to play Lobo forever.
Yeah.
And and we've never seen, to my knowledge, a live action Lobo, and that I
Not
thought
that
that
I
would be
remember.
cool, you know.
Yeah,
And so they bring him in. He makes absolutely no difference to the plot at all.
really.
None. He comes in
Mm.
and helps Supergirl fight some baddies. But other than that, you he's irrelevant. It's
Nah,
cool to see Lobo, but he's irrelevant. Not the case with Frank Castle.
no way. No, he was pivotal, and he was in the right scenes at the right time,
Mhm.
doing Frank Castle the way he does it. And he did it with his grit, he did it with his
Mhm.
anger, and he did it with his smart mouth humor. I mean, it was awesome.
Yeah. And the
Loved it.
only censorship was applied by Spider-Man.
Himself. That's true. Kid. He calls him kid.
Yeah. Let me tell you something, kid.
Tell you something, kid. But you know, Spider-Man Peter was able to give it back to him a couple times. So there's
Yeah.
and not that there's anything coming up later to talk about this, but I got a reference. They talk about the incident in Staten Island. It becomes a running joke throughout the movie, and it's very mysterious. They don't reveal anything like what happened. People ask, it
Mhm.
was so the banter on that happened on multiple occasions in the movie, and it was so
Yeah.
funny. And even other people were brought into the banter, and it was great. It was so great. And just to be clear, there's nothing on what happened in Staten Island. Nothing. They didn't talk about it in the movie, and I can't find anything in writing. So maybe they're preparing something or teasing something for a future, Frank Castle Spider-Man, something storyline. I don't know, but there was a little bit of comic accuracy with Frank Castle in Spider-Man, aside from Frank Castle being introduced, or the Punisher being introduced in Spider-Man, the Amazing Spider-Man comic book, and a couple of the amenities, or the where Frank Castle lives in this big barge. That's comic accurate, but for the most part, the storyline that they had in here was very unique and genuine as well. Aside from the Spider-Man, hero anti-hero thing, they were already on somewhat good terms, even though
Mhm.
they both know they're kind of have like superpowers, even though Frank doesn't really have superpowers. He's just a badass.
Mhm.
They kind of threw stuff back and forth at each other just for fun, but they're friends. So, or
Yeah, I
allies.
like the best chemist. I think maybe the best chemistry I've ever seen on screen between two superheroes.
And there's an amazing, and I absolutely loved it. And you cheered it on, the little bit of a redemption arc between Frank and Peter towards the end of the
Mhm.
movie. It's
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I don't know. It may become one of those things where it's just they leave it a mystery.
I
The
think so.
Staten Island thing, just like if you've ever read Calvin and Hobbes cartoons, there's the infamous spaghetti incident that is never shown, never explained, but it's referred to by the
Right.
parents once in a while, or Hobbes, and it
Yeah.
must have been a big deal. And then
Well,
Agents of Shield did a similar thing
yeah.
where they kept referencing how May, who they call the cavalry, or cavalry, not cavalry, cavalry, how she gained that name during a certain operation in one part of the world. And they
Yeah.
mentioned all the way through the series, and I thought they'd never pay it off, but then it becomes like super important later on in the
Yep.
series. So I don't know. They could go either way with it, but I bet that they just keep it a mystery.
Which is fine because it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's fun. Then we have the Hulk. I love the way that they made the universe feel like
Yep.
it's a real Marvel universe. Like
Yep.
you can interact with the Hulk one minute, you can interact with the Punisher the next,
Got an
Jean Grey, but
X-Men.
it
Yep.
all feels natural. It did
Yep.
nothing felt forced, in my opinion.
No, and kudos once again to Disney and Sony coming together at the table to share some of their IP, because
Mhm.
obviously we know the Hulk is definitely a Disney. He is not a Sony character. So kudos to them. It was necessary in this movie as well. Once again, another necessary um, point for the movie. So
Yeah, and I very much welcome the return of Savage Hulk. I love Savage Hulk. Yeah, not that I don't enjoy a good Professor Hulk story, but
yeah,
Professor Hulk to me exists to make me long for the return of of Savage Hulk.
Yep.
I love it when Hulk does what he does best. In the words of Captain America, Hulk smash.
Yep. Well, there are apparently some Easter eggs within that classroom scene. We don't have to get into that because I'm not too familiar with them, but there are a few Easter eggs within that classroom scene. But all good in all intents and purposes for the movie. That's how they basically teed up the Hulk coming back into this situation. It was good to see Hulk kind of get back to himself again. So,
yeah, and the Hulk is weird in the way that the movie rights are situated because I forgot who owns the distribution rights to the Hulk, but Marvel cannot make a Hulk movie, even though they own his character. They cannot make a standalone Hulk movie because somebody else owns the distribution rights, and they'd have to pay them $1 gajillion. So they just put him in a whole bunch of other, which is fine by me. I like Hulk showing up in lots of stuff. But,
yeah. Yep.
Then we have those of you who are Better Call Saul fans. We have Michael Mando playing the Scorpion, who he plays an important part, but there's an asterisk to that, in that a lot of it he's controlled by Jean Grey. But if you're a Better Call Saul fan, it was very nice to see him return as the Scorpion, and at least it pays off that end credit scene we got a few movies back.
Yeah, and I also feel as if they didn't really need him. I think in this movie, I mean, they could have put any other villain in it.
Yeah,
right, because they needed a kind of a filler. But I think it's one that we really haven't seen before, for the most part. We've had the Chameleon and all of these. So it was really kind of neat to see him, even though it's like a really full on mechanical, like updated, outfit and all that good stuff. But yeah,
well, it always was a mechanical suit. It just didn't look like it.
Yes, that is true.
Because, and this is what J. Jonah Jameson originally got him the suit. But here's one of my gripes. I've got a few gripes about Marvel, the comics, as well as just in general, the movies and TV shows, is that everybody eventually became Iron Man at some point, where they had an Iron Man suit of some point on armor with an intelligent interface. Yeah. And I don't want that. I want to see each individual hero have their own strength and superpower, and not everybody be Iron Man. I love Iron Man.
Yeah.
But
and look, and that's really where I was going with the Scorpion stuff. It's like, the outfit was definitely like a high tech, type outfit and stuff, and rightfully so. I guess it's the universe. It's just, it just didn't. I don't know. It just didn't seem a little bit.
It's of course, Stark Tech. The same way Vulture's suit was Stark Tech.
Exactly. And I'm trying to go a little bit more comic accurate if I can. So that's just where I'm teasing out that loop. But
no, it didn't. The comic book suit, even though it was a suit and not like he became a Scorpion,
right?
It didn't look mechanical.
Right.
It looked more natural. Yeah. Agreed. Then we had the actor who plays Mr. Milchick from Severance. And I always say, if you haven't watched Severance and you like science fiction, you need to do so yesterday. Trammell Tillman. And Severance is, I will say it a million times, not only one of the best science fiction shows I've ever seen, one of the best TV shows I've ever seen. And if you like Backrooms, there's a very strong sort of influence there from Backrooms.
So, and he led an organization that I didn't know, and this is just my, maybe just wasn't me paying attention throughout the Marvel series, but the greater Marvel series. But he was the head of in New York City, Damage Control, which is an organization that is does what its name says, damage control. But as always, in my opinion, those types of organizations are always a little bit questionable. And it turns out, just so happened to be that way again.
Yeah, well, they've been around sort of behind the scenes. In fact, I'd say that they've been a constant sort of behind the scenes antagonist in all the Spider-Man movies. Basically, their backstory is that Tony Stark created damage control in
Hmm.
order to clean up after the collateral damage of Battle of New York
Yes.
and other superhero fights. And kind of one of the things is that Tony didn't want like alien tech and things falling into the hands of just anybody. In other words,
Right.
he wanted to control it,
Hydra.
as he always does with tech, and or did with tech. And so they were always there. They were a very big presence in Miss Marvel,
Yeah.
and they were a huge presence in Wonder Man. They were the principal antagonist in Wonder Man, the TV
Yep.
show,
Yep.
and um, but they evolved from just kind of almost a custodial service started by Tony Stark
Yeah.
into a force that needed to justify their own funding,
Hmm.
which sometimes government agencies will evolve into that, and then they they're just going after people because they need the tax dollars put into their agency to justify
Yeah.
what they're doing.
Yeah. But played a major role in the movie, of course. It was an important
Yeah,
role. So
but
yeah.
this guy's an ideologue. He legitimately believes in his cause of going after these people. He's not just in it
Yeah.
for the money.
Which I
Yeah.
think a lot of them do. I really do. I think they really think that they were put in this position from a business standpoint. They know the risk. They know the rules. They know why they're there, and yeah, they truly live it out. But it was an interesting take for sure because I definitely did not. I definitely was not a fan after the movie started to pan out. So
Yeah. And let me just say that I love the visuals of this movie.
yes,
This is comic accurate right here. I feel like comic book pages come alive. And I know they literally took certain
that's
covers and pages and scenes and turned them
yeah.
into live action.
And
Good
that
job.
right there that's a treat for comic fans. And I love it when producers, directors, I love it when they do that type of stuff. They absolutely go when they really try to go comic accurate based on a cover. I mean, even the
Mhm.
suit, everything, Spider-Man suit, the boomerang. I mean, all of that stuff is, yep, very cool.
Yeah. Okay, so now let's get into looking at some um, kind of stuff about analyzing some themes and looking at the science of some of the stuff in Spider-Man. Not by
Yeah.
any means all of it.
No, but these were definitely some cool things that Mike and I this is how our brains work when we're watching these types of movies. Obviously, when we step outside of talking about the actual movie and the lore. So
Yeah.
this is pretty cool. So let's jump in.
So, and they explain this in the movies, but the difference between a mutant and a mutate has something happen to them, like
Yep.
the Hulk had a gamma bomb exploded with gamma radiation. Captain
Mhm.
America had the super soldier serum injected into him. The Fantastic Four had cosmic rays.
Yep.
Spider-Man was bitten by a radioactive spider. So some outside force causes their DNA to change to give them powers, whereas a mutant, they're born with a gene that is somehow activated either puberty or through some other trauma or something that
Right.
causes their powers to be expressed. So one is gained during life and one you're born with. And that distinction, it turns out, is super important.
It is. And it's been a common theme throughout Marvel's tenure for the most part, right? I mean,
Yeah.
the X-Men are mutants. They are born. It's hereditary. They that's just how their DNA evolved. And then you've got your other regular run of the mill superheroes, right? Spider-Man he was
Yeah.
just bit by a spider and gave him
Yeah.
powers.
A
So
radioactive spider. Yeah. And so the idea here is that the X gene that is passed on by the mutants has been around for at least thousands of years, because if you look at the comics, there's Apocalypse, or he was in the movie too, but he had the X
yeah.
gene. He was the first mutant, even
Yep.
though he's the one who says he's the first mutant. Who knows if he was the first mutant? But um, I don't trust what the villains say
No,
or
me either.
antagonists say. Um, but let's look at the difference between why does it matter if you acquire it versus if you are born with it. So, and we're not going to get deep into the biology here, even though we're both biologists, um, among other things. But
Yep.
a somatic mutation, we have the root word soma here, which means body. So what that means is that the radioactive spider or the gamma rays changes your body cells. Maybe it
Yes.
makes you shoot out organic webbing. Maybe it makes you able to stretch. It changes your body cells, but it doesn't necessarily change the production of sperms and eggs.
Yep. Yep. So it doesn't actually, potentially, it doesn't actually affect those areas where DNA is housed. So it's still the same DNA. Therefore,
Or,
you could be a
or DNA
superhero
passed
that
on to the children is housed.
exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So your localized DNA, your DNA could very well most likely
Your
get
body.
altered.
Yeah.
Yes, in
Yeah.
your body, but that doesn't mean that it actually affects that. Therefore, superheroes can fall in love, get married, have children, and the children might not have superpowers. Just
Yeah.
as a thing.
And even the ones that appear like they do, like Franklin Richards, Sue Storm, and Reed Richards' son, who appears like he had powers because of his parents. Turns
Yeah.
out that a future Franklin Richards goes back in time and actually makes sure that he gives himself powers.
That's awesome.
Yeah, comic books. What can I say? So,
Awesome.
and then there's germline mutations.
Yep.
So that means that your sex cells, sperms and eggs, pass on the mutation to your offspring automatically.
Yep.
Okay, there's no doubt about it. So why does this matter? We ask ourselves, and this is something we see a question we see raised about that I've heard before. Like when you look at mutants and you look at the other superheroes like the Avengers, and a couple of those are mutants like Wanda, but
Yeah.
when you and say, well, why they all have powers? Why in the X-Men movies do they make such a big deal about people being scared of mutants?
Yep.
It's because the biology of fear is steeped in heredity and inheritance. So if you acquire a power but you're not passing it on to your children, you're not changing anything about the future except maybe the lives you save and the
Right.
catastrophes you prevent from supervillains. But if
Or
you
opposite.
pass it on to your children, you're creating a potential race that
Yes.
is dominant. And of course, we know how charged
Yeah.
race politics are. We're not going to get into that, but that's why it's feared.
But that's been the common thing. If you've watched even, if you understand the X-Men comics, if you've watched the X-Men movies, I mean, that was exactly what those movies were predicated on. It was literally the humans versus the mutants. And the humans were, of course, we have to stop them. We have to prevent them from, whatever we can. We've got to inhibit their powers. We've got to destroy them, whatever it takes. We can't have that because they're afraid, and rightfully so, because, mutants could continue to populate the planet just as easy as they are. And, they're spreading on mutant genes, and I totally get that fear. Not that we should be acting on that, because not everybody, they're still human to an extent. They just have mutated genes. That doesn't mean they're all going to be evil and whatnot. But if you push them into a corner, they might have to fight back. However, the part that really makes a lot of sense to me in that from the fear perspective is, if you're a part of a group or a race or whatever it may be that doesn't have powers, it's rightfully so that you would believe that anybody with a special ability, especially ones that are their powers, they're powerful beings, they're in fear of being snuffed out. I mean, you literally could, you'll get, removed from the timeline.
And Magneto doesn't help things in
No,
his Brotherhood of Evil Mutants.
no, not at all.
And I know he becomes a good guy, but
yeah, but
he always sort of has the ideology of, well, we're still better than other people.
Right. So there were almost like three types of mutants. There were like the good mutants that they just wanted to integrate within humans, and they would use their powers for good and all that. There were
Charles
the mut
Xavier.
there were
Yeah.
yeah, there were the mutants that essentially were threatened or put into a a position like I can't do anything else but defend myself because I'm being threatened. And then there were the mutants that were just like I said, I think Magneto, they were ideologues. Like, well, hey, we might as well just continue to pull this thread. We're better than them. We're more powerful than them. We don't need them around. So we'll just
Mhm.
we'll just help speed up their extinction. Right. And that's enough to be afraid. I'd be afraid of that too, but
Yeah.
interesting take.
So yeah, so the biology of fear. Now, next thing I want to talk about is you mentioned earlier that this story, the first act of it at least, was pretty dark.
Yes.
And I agree, but I'm going to make the case that it needed to be dark
Yeah.
on both Peter's standpoint. So let's think from one standpoint. In fact, this was when I was first watching it. I was like, okay, so Peter's undergoing some stuff, and yeah,
Yeah.
they're making the parallel between him becoming a monster and the Hulk being a monster, and what Jean Grey's becoming, and that that was pretty obvious, I think.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
but you could almost feel like that him evolving or changing is a better word into a more powerful mutate version of himself with more
Mhm.
spider enhanced powers. You could
Yeah.
almost feel like that was almost a secondary storyline that wasn't tied directly except for the we're becoming monsters theme.
Right.
But I'm gonna claim that there's a much stronger reason for it. So Jean, as we know, is going to be triggered by trauma to go from a powerful psychic to a mega level psychic by the end
Yes.
of the movie,
Very
which
quickly.
in X-Men terms, I think is the top level.
Yeah.
And so we see this transformation. And when she does that, she does some pretty horrific things. And
Yeah.
the one that you may see cited the most is that she takes control of a bystander in New York City and has him walk in front of a taxi and he's hit.
Yep.
And his eventual fate is left ambiguous. Okay.
Yeah.
But I will make the contention I believe he lived, and that's because of the reason being the parallel story structure with Peter. Okay. So you go over to the Peter side of it, and you have his arachnoid genes pumping out more arachnoid hormones, I think is the way they explained it,
Yeah.
and enhancing his spider power. So we can't connect with Peter necessarily just by saying or understanding that he's more powerful now. Yeah, he's throwing people further maybe, and he's able to lift things that he wasn't able to lift before, but still
Right.
that's not a direct understanding of how powerful he is. The black eyes, it's a cool visual effect, but it's still, we don't feel that connection. But when they have his organic webbing happen,
Yes. Yes.
and they make a big deal out of the contrast between that and the mechanical webbing, then that is something like, oh, well, that is a major change,
Well,
and it's stronger and it shoots further, and it's a big deal.
and he was wrestling with his senses too, right? His
Yeah.
senses became like almost overbearing, and I think that kind of took him down a path of like, fear. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's happening to me. I'm losing myself, or I'm going crazy. I mean, I think he was just terrified. I literally, there was a scene where he's on top of a roof and he was just, the senses were just
Yeah.
overbearing, and it's like he was terrified of like what's happening to me.
Yeah, he was almost had Superman level hearing where he was picking
Yeah.
up everything.
Yeah.
And
Senses everywhere. Yeah.
so you have Jean, who is undergoing fight or flight. Her sister has been abducted. She's trying to save her. She's a young teenage girl.
Yep.
And with all that implies, being a teenager going through the changes, and she's trying to rescue her sister, and then she does this to this bystander. So the problem from a story structure point of view
Yeah.
is, have we made this character irredeemable?
Yep.
So they wanted to make us feel like Jean Grey, who we know from X-Men movies.
It's
They
not
wanted us to feel like she could be the villain,
right.
like she could be dangerous. So she does this terrible thing, and we could view her as irredeemable, except what if we have Peter Parker, who we love and we know is
Yep.
Spider-Man, and he's our friendly neighbor Spider-Man. We love him already. What if he does the same exact thing? And he does within minutes of that
Yep.
scene. What
Yep.
does he do? He's overcome by his arachnoid hormones or whatnot, and he nearly kills a cop, very recklessly nearly kills a cop.
Yep.
Very out of character for him. And so what that tells us from a story point of view, this was out of character for him, and what Jean Grey did was out of character for her. They're
Yes.
both being overtaken by the hormones, by these changes, by the escalation of power. So
Yep.
the reason that we needed to see the organic webbing is not because necessarily they're leading up to a black suit Venom storyline, which they probably will at some point,
Yeah.
but it's because we had to show the the physical changes going on with him so that we could empathize with him, so that we could allow Jean Grey to be redeemed at the end,
Yeah.
because only through him doing the same thing can she be redeemable as far as the storytelling part of it goes.
Well, and it also allowed those two characters, which once again is not that I know of or I'm aware of, and I'm talking like from the early 60s comics and 70s comics, at least somewhere into the 70s comics, where they connected. They connected on a level that was very unique to both of them, period.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and it absolutely took those similar experiences that they both had within the movie for them to actually connect, to make that connection. And then they had the scene in Peter's, I think, childhood bedroom where Peter was actually talking with his mother, but then she got into his mind. He let her. He's like, come into my, go ahead, go in, come take a visit in my mind and whatnot, because that's essentially Jean Grey's power, by the way. She can get into your mind.
You mean his Aunt May, right?
I'm sorry, Aunt May. I apologize. Aunt May. Yes, correct. So she actually experienced what he was going through during that time, that conversation that he had with Aunt May. And she realized like she had been longing for that type of conversation as well. But the bigger piece was, to have with a parent, because they did have a scene where she was kind of struggling to accept the fact that their mother kind of abandoned them, or I believe abandoned them, or something happened to their mother where the mother wasn't in her or her sister's life. Right. So she saw that piece, but the bigger piece that she saw when she was in Peter's mind was Peter had the exact same feelings, and he was trying to express those to Aunt May, and Aunt May was consoling him and telling him, look, it's okay. You're not alone. And then she realized, oh my gosh, he's feeling the exact same things, or felt the exact same things I felt a long time ago. He felt them a long time ago, that she's feeling right now. And so I think that allowed her to really realize, I'm really not alone. And then of course, Peter, after that's all over and said and done and everything's fine, Peter basically tells her, he's like, you're not alone. You've got me. Yeah. And it was just awesome. It was really great. They just really played that out so very well.
And, it speaks to how Peter Parker, his character, of how he's willing to help this person no matter what she's done.
Exactly, because he's been there. He's walked that road. He knows what that's the thing. He knows what she's going through because he's gone through it, essentially going through it right now as well, right? I mean, almost to a point where it's extreme now in his life. I don't think he's actually gone through it at this level, but he's still able to make sense of it, whereas she wasn't, as you know. She wasn't at all. She wasn't handling it well at all.
Yeah.
So,
well, at least he did have his Aunt May, and so he had a guiding hand that was loving.
But he lost her, and that was another relation to her. That was a big topic of their conversation. He's like, "I'm sorry you lost your sister. I lost someone too, but doing this can't bring them back."
Yeah.
acting, in your anger that cannot bring them
Yeah.
back. So
So so basically he had to almost kill that cop to show that he was just like Jean Grey, out of control, not his normal self. That way we can understand that she's going through the same thing and she can
yeah,
be redeemable in the movie.
right. Because
So
yeah,
yeah.
because when we're watching a movie, we're like, okay, there's a good guy and there's a bad guy. We always love the good guy. So no matter what the good guy does, we're going to be okay
Mhm.
with it, right? That was kind of the piece that we tried to struggle with a little bit with Frank Castle, right? And
Mhm.
between Frank Castle and Daredevil. But Spider-Man is always a bad guy, doesn't kill, that kind of thing. But then
And
with
he's
her, it's
always
like,
good guy.
sorry, he's always a good guy. No, I'm off my game today, man. But Jean Grey, we just didn't know. We're like, I didn't know it was Jean, so
Yeah.
it's definitely a bad guy. Whatever they do, or a bad girl, whatever they do is bad and it's evil and whatnot. But then it's like, it's Jean Grey. Like, how can this be? If you
Yeah.
know X-Men, you know who Jean Grey is. How can this be? This can't be right.
Yeah.
Hence, this
And
movie played out, teased
from
it
a
perfectly.
storytelling point of view, you have to make certain choices so that people don't hate your characters.
Right.
Because realistically, a million things that she did controlling the different vehicles and stuff could have killed untold numbers of people.
Oh,
And so you just have to make sure those people don't die when you're writing the script. And then
count.
the same thing with the Hulk, man. The Hulk's not a bad guy. He's
No.
a good person inside, even when he's
Yeah.
the Hulk. But he does things that could easily kill dozens of people at any given time. He doesn't
Yeah.
mean to, but you can't have him actually accidentally kill people because then we'd be like, I'm out. I don't like the Hulk anymore.
Yeah. Like I'm done. I'm done with Hulk. I can't. No.
Yeah.
So
There's we should have a name for that convenience. Um, in I don't know, bystander
we'll
protection field,
figure it out.
bystander convenient protection field.
Exactly.
Um, um, okay, did MJ remember Peter?
This was
I'm
fun.
going to say that she did, and it wasn't just. Um, I I mean, there's so much that points the way. First of
Yeah.
all, you can say, well, not MJ. Jean said that there was nothing in there. Yeah, Jean Grey was lying to him because she was doing anything to hurt him at that point,
Yeah.
including pretending to murder MJ by jumping off the building. Which, I mean, come on, she knew Peter Parker was going to rescue her. What's he going to do?
Yeah.
Let her fall to her death?
What real
Um,
quick, what Mike's referring to in the movie is, yeah, Jean Grey infiltrated the mind of MJ and used
yeah,
MJ against Peter, against Spider-Man.
yeah.
And they had a scene on the top of a building and whatnot. And yeah, she was very, very hurtful at that
Where
stage, as we know. Yeah.
where she pretended. So she
She
infiltrated, as we mentioned earlier, MJ forgot who Peter Parker was.
right.
So Jean Grey infiltrated her mind and
Yes.
took her over and pretended that she remembered Peter Parker and
Yeah.
then kissed him. And he, this was just to hurt him when she would just say, nope, just kidding. This isn't
Yeah.
MJ. And she has no memories of you.
She was trying to break him. I think she was trying
Yeah.
to break Peter just so she could get him off her
I think she's
case.
lying through her
Yeah, Jean Grey. I think so
Phoenix.
too. Yep. I agree with you. I think she is too. And we never got to hear them have a conversation about that issue, because I think if that was the case, then Peter would have questioned her, I think, on that. Because I would have.
Yeah.
I would have said, when you were in her mind, did you find anything? And I want to talk about that in just a little bit.
Yeah. Well, I think the other evidence is, I mean, the Black Dahlia necklace, you could say, well, but maybe she just loved that necklace, even though she didn't know who got. Well, then why put it in the movie? And then um, this says he wasn't in a spider suit, but she drew a drawing of Peter in his homecoming suit, like suit.
Yep.
And then my last thing I'll say about this is that you can't go by when she, even if she was not lying,
Yep.
and she enters his MJ's mind the first time. You can't go by when she says there was nothing in there at that point, because it's later when when MJ is trapped in the psychic bubble with
Yes.
Ned and a bunch of other people, that she's much more powerful. And at that point, I think it really could have undone the spell that Doctor Strange did.
And that's where I wanted to go. Absolutely. So at the end of the movie, Jean Grey goes she comes into her power, at least a much stronger version of her power. It's just it happens because I think she embraces something when she realized that her sister actually was killed during experimentation by damage control people. It creates this massive mind control force field basically, and just freezes everybody within this radius of this mind control bubble. And Ned and MJ are both caught in it. So what is to say that, and that's where I wanted to go with this, with the whole Doctor Strange piece, because as we know, as we talked earlier, Doctor Strange did a memory spell on everybody in the past movie to rewrite the time, to fix the timeline, basically, to where he erased Peter Parker and Spider-Man being something, or as Mike mentioned even more, Peter Parker in general. Nobody knows who Peter Parker is, period. And so because of that, to me, I'm thinking, not that Doctor Strange's power isn't great, because he's very powerful, Sorcerer Supreme, that kind of stuff. But, just similar with people with amnesia, right? There are instances and cases where people that have amnesia somehow, some way find those memories again, or certain memories start to come back, or certain things, they might be faint, but they're starting to come back again. So my theory is that those neurons are never destroyed. They're just inhibited or blocked somehow, some way. Maybe that's how a spell would work. I don't think a spell would destroy neurons. I don't think it would eliminate those neurons or what have you, that, because the memory is the transport of neurotransmitters across the synapse or whatnot. Right.
Mhm.
So I don't think that Doctor Strange would have done something that sinister or something that bad. And they called it a spell. So to me, a spell is something that can potentially be broken, right? From
Right.
history of fantasy films, right? So what I'm getting at is, I think that Jean Grey, her powers are powerful enough, or could be powerful enough, to have triggered something that could have,
Mhm.
maybe altered or boggled or severed something within Doctor Strange's spell. Not that it was completely released, because it's powerful. He's a very powerful sorcerer, but something could have potentially triggered or deactivated a piece of the spell or something, to where they could start to remember. And the only reason why I'm going there, and to Mike's point, was the fact that at the very end of the movie, when he walked in, Peter himself, not Spider-Man, Peter walked into the deli to buy flowers for his mother, or for Aunt May, like he always does, to go put on her grave. Ned was sitting there, and he walked right up to Ned, didn't say anything or whatnot. If I'm not mistaken, he didn't say anything. And they did their handshake that they've done since the beginning of the Tom Holland Spider-Man movies. And it was spot on. They didn't miss a beat. And then Ned was just like blown away. It's almost as if he started to recognize, like, wait, what? Like, I know you. Obviously, I know you. We just did this handshake. Or like, so that really is what, that's why I believe that theory. Now, I don't know what they're going to do with it. Hopefully they will. Hopefully that will be the case. And hopefully it will be something that happens with MJ. Maybe she will start to realize. We'll see. I don't know.
Well, question: do you want him to get back together with MJ? Would that be your preference?
Well, me as the hopeless romantic, yes, I do. I really do. Because I truly believe that when you, and maybe in my, like reality, real life, I know I've dated women that I know that I've felt love for. I
Excuse
have
me.
loved. God bless you.
Yeah.
That I've loved, but I don't know if I've ever had that deep of love. I don't know if I've experienced like the fullness of love yet in my life, right? Whereas I truly believe Peter really felt that way for her, because once again, the sacrifice that he had to make, and he was willing to just ignore and blow everybody off and everything off, not even, just focus on work 100% for that many years. And when you saw his face, when he was talking with Mary Jane, and Mary Jane said, I do not have any of those feelings. I don't remember you. I don't have that love for you. You could just see it. He was
Yeah.
absolutely devastated. It was like
It would be
everything that he
crushing.
feared. Yeah, it was crushing. And And I truly believe I don't know if he'll ever be able to love someone like that again. And I don't think he'll ever get over it. So hopeless romantic in me, yes, I absolutely would love for them to be together because I think they're meant to be together. I just do. Not Gwen Stacy.
Yeah, well, that would only be possible if Spider-Gwen came across from another universe. Which I like Spider-Gwen. I'd be down with that. But
Yeah.
in the comic book, of course, he's got an on again, off again relationship with MJ and
Yep.
the Black Cat.
Yep.
So kind of got a Batman Catwoman thing going on with her.
Mike, let me ask you a question before we move on. Do you think the Hulk remembered Peter Parker and Spider-Man?
I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tell me.
Because I don't think the Hulk's mind was ever affected by the spell. I think the Hulk was sequestered away somewhere where the Doctor Strange didn't affect him. Bruce Banner, yes, but not the Hulk.
Yep. They had a moment, right? They had a moment in the movie where he was in the Hulk. He was full rage Hulk, and something triggered something. They didn't say anything or something, and they cut the scene like immediately. But Hulk looked at him like, "I know who you are." At least that's what I got.
Yeah, I think he recognized that was Peter Parker in there. Yeah. Okay. So, mind if I do Mike's musing?
Go right ahead, sir. I know there's one coming. So,
so one of the things, and I thought it was strange when they first did it, but there's been some people didn't like it at all. Was hot Aunt May. So the idea that in the Holland era Spider-Man, Marissa Tomei, who, if you grew up when I did and watched My Cousin Vinny, you were in love immediately.
Yes.
And I can only imagine if you have an Italian family, even more so.
Oh man, she's great. She was great in that film.
Yeah, great film. But she was cast as Aunt May, and it was like, and she had a thing with Happy Hogan, and so. But I just, it flashed on me when I was watching this movie that it totally makes sense, and now I prefer younger Aunt May, and that's because, this is my Mike's musing, is because, come on, in the comic books, Peter Parker is 15 or 16. So when he starts off being Spider-Man, why is his Aunt May like 98 or something? I mean, that's what she looks like she's in her 90s. That doesn't make sense for most. I mean, I guess it's possible physically, but it would be much more plausible if she was the same age as his mom and dad, right? Or close to it, or somewhere in there. So
I do agree.
I actually prefer this. I actually prefer Hot Aunt May to Aunt May Classic.
Aunt May Classic Aunt May, and in the Tobey, on all fairness, Tobey Maguire films, as well as the Andrew Garfield films, they did have an older Aunt May, and then they brought Marissa Tomei in this, and I think it made a difference. It made more sense to me. However, I need to go back and look in the original comics to see if she had gray hair in the original comics, unless you already know.
Oh, I'm pretty sure she did. Yeah. Because I read those original Stan Lee, Steve Ditko comic books. I didn't own the originals because I'd be a millionaire if I did, but I had reprints,
Yeah. Well, so you're talking about the Amazing Spider-Man.
Yeah, Amazing comic. Fantasy, and then Amazing Spider-Man, and
for a
while I read those, and then there still is, as far as I know, Peter Parker, the Spectacular Spider-Man series.
I would love to have an Amazing Fantasy 15. Matter of fact, I'd love to. I know my dad would love to have a copy as well, an original. It would be awesome. But Amazing Spider-Man is the one I'm familiar with. Spectacular Spider-Man, I don't know too much about that run, but the Amazing Spider-Man for sure. So I'm very familiar with
it. It focuses a little bit more on Peter's social life.
Yes.
But I mean, it's just also a standard Spider-Man comic book in lots of ways as well.
So
uh,
I don't have any Anthony musings or anything, but there is one thing that I did want to
yeah.
I thought was interesting a part of this movie as well, right? When it came to Peter Parker actually realizing his spider arachnid hormone abilities, right, that were actually coming to fruition in his body, right, because he was bit by a radioactive spider. He got some powers, as you said, strength, able to stick, jump, take a beating, that kind of thing. But his web stuff was not organic. It was all, it was all
Mhm.
electronic. He's obviously a brilliant scientist, was able to, and then of course with Stark Tech he was able to do all kinds of cool stuff. But that being said, this is where he actually started to kind of become the organic Spider-Man in this movie. And
Mhm.
he got to a point where he actually was able to embrace it, right? But there was a huge part of this movie, and it was a necessary part, and that was reason, really, I think, of one of the main arcs for the Hulk being in this movie was this idea of being able to inhibit the DNA, right?
Mhm.
And I don't know if we tease too much about that or talk too much about that in this episode, but what I'm getting at is, you know, Dr. Banner is still struggling with trying to embrace who he actually is, right? Genetically, because he is altered no matter what. So he used this DNA altering device that he had invented and created, which suppressed that mRNA expression, because, when DNA splits and it codes for mRNA, and then mRNA codes for proteins and blah, 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 and so on and so forth. Well, he had invented a device that actually inhibited the messenger RNA. Because Spider-Man, or Peter Parker, was dealing with this and he was afraid of it, but he realized that it was, because his suit, I think, was communicating to him. It realized that it was something to do with his DNA, that it was altering his DNA, hormonal imbalance, that kind of stuff. He basically tried to utilize the same technology, and he did. He actually created it, and it worked for him. But at the end of the movie, Spider-Man was basically told that you have to make a choice. You either become, this monster and embrace it and lose yourself, who you are, Peter, or you remain Peter Parker and suppress this, and then you just eventually you're going to die, basically, because you're going to always be weak and die. And Peter's like, he took the thing off his neck and he said, "No, I know who I am." And he said, "I'm both." So and then he just rocked that room. That was when the hand came in, and that's probably the most screen time you got of the hand, the ninjas fighting. It was an awesome fight scene, and they did very well on that choreography, by the way, I must say. But I would offer that it was pretty impressive to me, because Peter Parker was actually able to, at least from what we saw, embrace it. And Dr. Banner still is not able to embrace it yet. He still needs something to inhibit. So, any thoughts on that, Mike?
Only that I wish we would get a really good Hulk movie where Banner
Yeah.
is struggling with that. We get some good scenes inside of his psyche, kind of
Yep.
like when you have Professor X battling somebody in their minds.
Yes.
There's plenty of that in the Hulk comic books, but I'd love to see that played out in the movie.
Yeah. That'd be
Yeah,
cool. But
and let me call back to James Bond here because ninjas, I will point out, the first popularization of ninjas in action movies was in Her Majesty's Secret Service, I believe.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah, I do. I say I do remember a James Bond film where he visited Japan, right? And
there were so many ninjas in that movie.
yeah, yeah. But no,
Um,
no, no. So I mean, Spider-Man, Brand New Day, really highly anticipated. It did not disappoint. It was a great film. I'm glad that we both were able to go see it, grace the screen, and it was just another good, solid Spider-Man movie. I
yep.
think definitely ready for Doomsday. Looking forward to that. Going to see how maybe this story ties in somehow, some way. We already do know, and of course you can't avoid it, but we already do know the X-Men are going to have a presence in Doomsday. Fantastic Four is going to have a presence in Doomsday. Obviously, some of the Avengers, if not all of them, that we have come to know and love are going to be involved. We don't know the breadth yet of all. I'm trying to avoid it and stay away from it as best I can, but sometimes it's hard. And we obviously know the big antagonist is Doctor Doom, but we don't know if Doctor Doom is going to be, once again, doing something from from his own personal feelings of benevolence. I don't know, because as we all know, was Thanos really a bad guy? What were his real intentions? Right. So,
from a comic book accurate standpoint, Dr. Doom definitely thinks he's the good guy.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. He thinks he's doing the right thing. And
the world would be a much better place if I was in charge, man.
Right. Well,
and
because we're dealing with multiverse stuff, I mean, I haven't read too much, of course, because I'm trying to avoid it. But sometimes you come across things and they'll, just a sentence or two, and they're talking that he might be trying to fix timelines. He might be trying to stop other things and happening in other timelines, so it can stop perpetuating the chaos that's happening with this multiverse issue or problem. He's basically looking at the multiverse issue as a holistic problem, and supposedly he's trying to fix it. One fan theory or something that I understand, but I can't wait for that movie. I hope Marvel Disney does step up and do a really good job with that. I think this will really make or break for good.
I think it'll be good. And I don't think Spider-Man will be in Doomsday because Tom Holland was filming this film and Odyssey while they were filming that one. So the schedules.
Oh, no kidding. So we might not see Spider-Man. Oh, really? Oh.
But he will definitely, I mean, he's got to be in Secret. You can't do Secret Wars without having Spider-Man in it.
Oh, no.
He's a main character in it, along with Reed Richards and Dr. Doom.
If you have the Secret Wars series, at least the first one, because I think there was another one.
There was one in the 2015 or something.
Yeah, but if you have the original one, he probably has the most famous comic out of the Secret Wars. That's where he debuts his right, and that's where he debuts in the black suit.
Cover where he has the black suit. Yeah.
The black suit. Yeah. So we'll see where that goes. But no, great movie. If you haven't seen it, if you haven't been a part of the record-breaking box office weekend, definitely go give it a shot, a watch. It is very, very good. Be prepared for a good ride and very good story. Hopefully you'll see some of the themes that Mike and and we'd love to hear your take on it too, by the way, on some of our themes that we talked about today in our episode. So
tell us, do you want Peter to get back with MJ, or should he hook up with Spider-Gwen or Black Cat? All right. We have a sponsor for the show. Would you like to hear who
do we have a sponsor, Mike? Let's hear who the sponsor is this week.
So today the sponsor is the Boar's Nest. The Boar's Nest. If your wife's cooking is worse than the grease traps at Cooter's Repair Shop, come on down to the Boar's Nest. Serving unfancy food and flat beer since 1979. The Boar's Nest. Come on down and say hey to Daisy.
Mike, isn't that from the Dukes of Hazzard TV show?
I'm not sure what you're talking about. I was driving through Georgia and I found this little place. It was nice.
Okay.
They had a really good looking waitress there.
They got a good ham steak over
there.
Not
much of a dress code. Not much of a dress code.
Awesome. Well, hey, Mike, it's been a great show. Thanks again, man. I was really stoked about nerding out with you this week. Grateful to have the opportunity to do that once again with you. Good show, and look forward to next week. We'll see what we have in store for everybody else.
Yeah, it'll be a bit as big of a surprise to us.
It will be.
Anyone else. Yeah,
that is the truth. Right, we don't know yet.
This is the way.
This is the way. This is how we do it. So say we all.
So say we all.
All right, Mike. Well, have a great one, man.